Something is here. Alrighty. Okay, well everyone, it is the 1st of April 2015 and this is not an April Fool's joke. We are here on live with Mr. Gordon Hester all the way from the US of A, and he very kindly decided that he would go to the office at 4:30 a.m. to run a webinar for us for 5 a.m. So we are just thrilled. Now for some of you that are on the line, you're very new, so you might not know who Gordon is. And Gordon has run Jeff Roberti's business, and Jeff, of course, is our #1 income earner in the world in Juice Plus. And you just never know. Maybe you might hear some words of wisdom from him too. I'm not sure. Just never know. Hold your horses. So tonight, Gordon's actually going to have a bit of a chit-chat with us because he's run that business for over 20 years now. He also coaches a number of top leaders all over the world, including right here in Australia, and he's been very instrumental, not just with some of our leaders, but for me personally as well, as being an amazing mentor and a go-to person for words of wisdom. And I really, really appreciate his friendship and just what he's brought to the business and helped me grow in this as well as our amazing leaders. So he's been around this whole, the whole company. He is integral, working not just about driving our global momentum wave that's been happening in the UK, in America, and in Australia. So he's got an inside knowledge of what it's about. So tonight he's going to talk to us about the best lessons. What are the keys to success in today's Juice Plus business? So I am going to hand it over to you, and let's take it away, Gordon. And really, really, again, thank you so much for being here and sharing with us tonight.
Well, Celine, thank you for the introduction, and thanks everybody for tuning in. It is certainly a little bit early here, but early to rise is always a good thing. So I'm excited to be on and to share a little bit of information with everybody about what's going on, and maybe that's a good place to start. You know, what's going on today is something that wasn't going on a couple years ago, and that is a huge momentum wave. You know, it's about 3 years ago we were kind of looking at the business and doing a lot of analytics and a lot of studying and paying a lot of attention to coaching, especially where people were having success and trying to learn what lessons we needed to learn, how we could get a better understanding of how our business worked. We began teaching that, and you know, business now is booming more than it's boomed in literally years and years and years. So it's great, and it's great everywhere. You know, we're starting to see faster results all over the world. We're starting to see people that are coming in that are having just huge success in an early period of time. Starting to see people come in that are having a major impact on markets. Like we got a kid in Germany that came in, and he's almost doing half the new volume for that whole country, him and his team. So, you know, it's an exciting time to be involved because we've learned these lessons. And of course, we're also finding when things are done the right way, that stability is growing in our business. And, you know, stability for us is a growing customer base. It always has been, and it always will be. And, you know, what I wanted to share tonight, we're like, what are the things they're doing? What are the lessons we're learning? You know, how do we sort of create abundance in this business if that's the goal, you know, just continue to make it bigger and bigger. You know, I will tell you on our side, you know, the company's booming, but Jeff's story is a great story too, in that his business, the last 4 years have been his biggest. He started in 1987, to give you a perspective how long he's been in the business. So to build a business where the last 4 years have been the biggest speaks a lot about not only how to have long-term success, but how to have something that continues to grow, because the foundations and the stabilities of it and the thinking that we have and the strategies that we use work so well. What's exciting about the last 4 years, Celine, honestly, is the last year was the best. Yep. You know, Jeff's business last year went up over $500,000 for the year. So things are booming. I'm excited to share with you why. But I will tell you this. What I'm sharing tonight is important to listen to, because although the company's booming and we're having faster results than we've ever seen, there are a lot of people that aren't having that. And what we're finding is the reason is because they're not practicing the fundamentals I'm going to share. Either they don't understand our business, they're building too much complexity, they're not necessarily doing the right things in the business. So hopefully I can bring some clarity to that aspect of our business so that I can help all the Aussie team get better. Saying that, as I said last year when I was there, in my opinion, nobody does it better than the Australian market. I congratulate all of you. You've been our model for what stable growth looks like. And I believe that as you honor that model of building community around our mission, and you learn how to build the healthy speed into it, because not all speed is healthy for our business, and I'm certainly going to touch on that during the webinar tonight. I think it will benefit all of you in going faster and getting better results without getting away from the foundations of what made you number one in terms of building around community and mission. So if we begin to see here, there we go. So what are the outcomes? The first thing that I want to do is I want to share a model that we use, and it'll just help me explain some basics about our business. And I'm going to refer to this model a lot, so it'll help give a foundation from the company perspective on how we look at things and how our business works. And then I want to get into the meat of the presentation, which is going to be, if our goal is abundance, what are the 4 things we're seeing that are driving that process? So let's start with this picture. We call this the faucet, tub, and drain, and it probably looks familiar to it. It looks like a bathtub with a faucet or a tap, and it looks like a drain at the bottom. And as you can see, we give each of these a name. So the faucet for us is prospecting. It's about new business. It's about new AROs. It's about new recruits. It's about the entire prospecting system. And, you know, we're always studying prospecting to see what works and what can work better. The second aspect of our system is what I call engagement. So engagement to me was the foundation of everything we started learning. It was teaching the lesson that success in our business is a function of how long you keep relationships. You know, how long can we keep a customer? How long can we keep a team member in this? We taught a lot of engagement. I'll touch on aspects of this a little bit. And then, of course, we have the inevitable, any culture, any business in the world, there are people that leave. There's a drain. There's, you know, sort of a loss of that. Now, the question became, as we studied all this, well, which one is more important? And which one do we have to pay attention to drive our business? Is there some magic formula around this? And it turns out that there was. It turns out that if we prioritize this, then we can build on a solid foundation of understanding how our business model works. And the prioritization, as you can see, is a really simple 1, 2, 3. So what we learned is that the most important aspect of our business is engagement. It's keeping people in our culture, whether they're customers or in teams. And this sort of fits with our business model of building around end consumers. It fits with our cultural tenet of being a relationship culture, not a sales culture. And interestingly enough, the people that have been successful have always understood this. But there's been a little bit of a myth, and it actually, the UK story, I think, kind of spread this a little bit. And that myth was the secret to our business isn't really about the tub, but it's about the faucet. It's how fast we can get new people. It's about how fast we can build team. You know, a lot of people that do the tub or the faucet part, they start to think that opportunity is what drives success, and the more team we recruit, the better it's going to be. And here's what we've learned about this. If you have the tub right, so if you have the right systems in place and the right thinking and all the components of simplicity, and you're building culture the right way, and you have that foundation, then in essence you can open up the faucet as wide as you want. So I can invite as many new people into our culture as I want, but ultimately the reason that works is because I'm keeping them. But when we saw, and this was such a great lesson we learned from the UK in particular, because we saw fast growth there, you know, growth that we hadn't seen in 20 years of doing this. What we saw there is when you turn the faucet wide open and you're not building the foundation of your business around the tub, what happens is that volume that comes out of the faucet seems to go right to the drain. And we began to see these huge recruiting numbers and huge new AROs. And then we saw how quickly they got out of the tub. Matter of fact, in the UK, and you know, we haven't shared the whole story, but I want to share it tonight. We talked so much about the lessons, and they were really important to us, and we saw so much about you know, the growth and what was possible. But we also saw the amount of customers being lost and the speed at which we lost them at a level that we've never seen before. And to give you a perspective, if I look at the U.S. market, which is the biggest market, The U.S. market's over half of the worldwide business. It's the mountain. It's the hardest one to move. And I would tell you that if our customer base dropped 1% a month, every one of us would be sitting in Memphis trying to figure out what's going on. After we saw the UK run-up with them, driving the faucet, driving the business around opportunity, kind of a lot of old school thinking and getting away from the foundations of what we had, we saw their business, their customer base, drop almost 70% in 6 months. And we were looking at what was going on, and the reality is they were losing almost 9 out of 10 customers after one order. So what you have to understand, and I'm going to teach this in the webinar tonight, is that not all speed is good. The wrong kind of speed doesn't help business, it actually kills it. And what happens a lot of times is people see the speed and they get excited, and they don't understand the long-term consequences of this. So I want to teach you how to have speed. I'm a huge believer in speed. I find the business is more fun when you have speed, but we can never get away from the fundamentals. So if we understand going in that at the core of this, it's about mission, it's about relationships, about keeping people involved. If we have that part right, we can just open up the faucet and the tap and get as many new relationships as we want. And by the nature of that, we'll control the drain. And then we ultimately know that the stronger we develop an attitude, what I call service aptitude, the stronger we begin to understand the importance of a customer and the power of a customer, the better we'll manage the drain. And we're seeing a lot of people that are coming back into the business, back into being, whether it's a team member or whether it's a customer, as we begin to go back to our fundamentals. So the prioritization of how our business works is really, really important to understand. But the two big lessons we've learned is that at the end of the day, there was always this debate. Are we product-driven? Are we opportunity-driven? And it turns out we're not really either one. What we are is mission-driven. We have people that do wonderful with driving the product, and we have people that do wonderful with driving the opportunity and have growth, and they have stability. But at the end of the day, the reason is because they're honoring mission. And as you'll see later on in this works a lot better when we drive the process with the product experience and the customer experience, and opportunity kind of being secondary to that, not opportunity driving everything. And then out of all the analytics we study, so literally 3 years I've been working with the analytic team, building models on top of their data mining. And here's the thing we learned more than anything else: a growing business is a growing customer base. And the people that have the most stable businesses, the people that are growing the base, understand this, and they ultimately understand that it even gets better when those customers are repeat customers. So this was sort of the setup I wanted you to have, so we can talk about faucet, tub, and drain, because you'll hear those things as I begin to talk about what the main call's about tonight. So abundance, how is it that I can get people all over the world that are having this incredible speed and incredible success and honoring the things I just showed, and other people aren't doing this? There has to be something that's going on, something that we can teach. And when I'm talking about abundance, I just want to share a couple things before I go into the 4 steps. The first is that abundance for us means a great quantity of something. And if you really think about it, in our culture, it's not a great quantity of something, it's really a great quantity of everything. When we talk about abundance, a lot of times people think, oh, that's the growth of the business, that's the size of my check. Well, in reality, if you understand culture and how needs work and how people find homes, culture has to be much more than a product. It has to be much more than an opportunity. It has to begin to give you abundance in all these areas. So, of course, we want an abundance of good health. That's the foundation of our mission, inspiring healthy living. We want to have a business that can provide financial wealth, and we certainly have lots of proof that that's possible. We want a business that provides, we use the term passive income. I don't think it's ever passive when you have relationships. I call it relationship income. But we want a business that gives us the freedom to work when we want and how we want, sort of live life on our terms. We find a lot of people that the abundance they're looking for in life isn't necessarily their own needs, but to align with something, to kind of get involved with something where there's a purpose, something they can get involved in building a legacy around in their life. We continue to realize that you grow before your business grows. So people that are really doing well seem to have an abundance of personal development. Of course, we know that people are always looking to contribute to something, to be a part of something, to be in a culture that has fun. And of course, our culture has always been rich in relationships. So when I talk about abundance and when I coach on abundance, even when I'm working with a company on this, it isn't just a financial thing. It is all-encompassing. It is abundance through culture, not abundance just through business. And this is what the goal is, to provide all of these things, because what I can tell you is if these things on this sheet were the greatest, the place you had them fulfilled in your life was this culture, I couldn't pry you out of this culture. We used to teach an addiction rule that if 3 or more needs of yours were met in anything, we could addict you to something. And I will tell you that if you build these components into your team culture and into your country culture, you can addict people to your business where they won't leave. This is what building the tub is. This is what engagement looks like. So, knowing all that, now we got to get into, okay, so how do we create abundance? And step number 1 is to embrace simplicity. And, when we first looked at this business, and I certainly recognize this with my coaching, I found that everybody sort of had a different way of doing things. And some of that's good because you want to have innovation, but it becomes very problematic when you have people going to different meetings and they're learning different systems and everybody's talking about a different way. And we began to look at this and say, well, there has to be a better way. And like in the U.S., we began to develop this with something called the care funnel that became the mission-driven system. And, that was a huge part of this. We just took this mission-driven model into Europe, and it's now the model for everyone. And this was step 1. We knew that unless we could teach simplicity, we could not get independence. We could not get duplication. We were going to get a lot of people that started to build big organizations and get stuck, and they were sort of a slave to the business because they were helping so many people. And this is one of the lessons I learned from Jeff really early on with his Tell, Show, Try, Do, was the greatest gift you can give somebody is their independence. And in all honesty, the easiest way to give it to them is to keep it simple where they can get there, where you don't have to be involved for a long period of time. So when we began to talk about simplicity, and when I began to look at building the models, I said the first one was the care funnel, and this came about with a girl named Renee O'Neill who I was doing coaching with. And Renee was a stuck NMD, 3.5 years, working day and night and not going anywhere. And she called me up one day and asked for help, and I got her to shift thinking, and that thinking was she was driving her business process by the wrong things. I call it hope marketing. Her business process was all being driven by fast tracks and incentives and people's whys and all these future-based things, but it wasn't being driven around our mission. It wasn't being driven through the customer experience and through building raving fan customers, and then from that recruiting, sort of a retail to recruit philosophy. And I got her to embrace this, and she began to build this funnel. And as I said, this funnel changed the U.S. market. To give you a perspective of how much it changed it, for 6 years, our market was flat. Our sales weren't moving, our customer base wasn't moving, our distributor base wasn't moving. When we implemented this, everything changed. Our sales started booming, our customer base started growing again, our distributor base started growing again. We ended up having new AROs. Now, we're almost doing twice the amount of AROs we were doing before we put this in place. Interestingly enough, when we stopped making recruiting the focus, both AROs went up and distributor recruiting went up. And we're seeing numbers that used to be, that are way above what we used to have as targets and have trouble hitting. So this care funnel had a big difference. But when I had to go into Europe, I had to expand upon it. And the expansion was 3 words: a picture, a process, and a path. So what is the simplest way to understand our business? How can we build the lessons into it? What's the right process to teach around that allows innovation but will produce results, sort of a modified version of the care funnel? And what's the best path to build this business? The goal is unlimited abundance. So let's look at that piece. The first piece was the simplicity piece. This is the simplest way to look at our business. And you see, step number 1 is live the mission. And this is a term that I call it a hashtag term. This has become a brand now that's being shared all over the place. Living the mission is 2 things. It's about, first, health transformation. It's getting people to embrace a journey for better health. It's what our mission's all about. A mistake we had made for years was that we began to teach people the importance of having a business story and a product story. What we failed to realize is that when that's done, it becomes the past. Now the conversation isn't so much about the story you have, but more about the story you're pursuing. And we began to realize that people that were pursuing a new story, whether that was a new business story or a new product story, a new health transformation story, these were the people that had the most discipline. These were the people where engagement was the strongest. So I can't tell you how many people I've changed their business in coaching simply by having them pursue a new story. So we have to understand it's always important that we lead by example and live with the mission. And it's not only health transformation, but health, we think of physical health, but a lot of times health is mental. It's things like happiness and freedom and all the things that I listed in abundance. I call that culture. So living the mission is about a health transformation. It also is about building culture. And of course, what's the next thing we do when we live the mission? We find others that want to do the same thing. That's the whole faucet. That's the recruiting prospect. And then when we do that, there's only two other aspects of our business. You know, the biggest aspect is we keep customers. Right now, it's actually about 85% of our business is repeat customers that are not part of our business. They're not distributors. And it's repeat customers or end consumers on an auto reorder. So we understand that the path to stability is a growing customer base, and this is the foundation of our business. And I will tell you, everybody that has tried to violate this, so the UK model was we're going to turn every customer into a distributor. It just doesn't work. That's not who we are. This is why we're different than any network marketing company in the world, because the foundation of our business is a product or products that actually are so good and they are so fairly priced that our customer base wants to buy them. They don't need to be involved with a compensation program. This really matters in the world today. And this is something that we have to protect and understand. And then ultimately, you want to create team. And as I said, now that we've begun to build our system differently and build this mission-driven model, we're creating team like we've never created before. And then, of course, what do we do when we create team? We go back right to the beginning. You teach them to live the mission. You start with their journey. You have them begin to find others. You build systems, teach them how to keep customers, and how to turn that into create team. And this is the simplest form of our business. You know, it isn't about 50 launch calls and all this complexity to go around it. And this became how we taught the business. And people began to understand how to run a little bit easier. So the second part was, okay, so we understand what the business looks like, but what's the best way to build it? What is the process? And this is the process, and we call this the funnel. Now it's step 2 of the mission-driven model. This is what Renee began to build that was the care funnel, and it's been modified a little bit. So what's the first thing that we do in our business process? We promote living the mission. You know, we want people to start not with a memory jogger list, not with figuring out, you know, what 3-way call they're going to do today. We want them to experience our product and our culture. We want them to get results. You know, when I look back at Renee's story, when we were building the care funnel, it took 5 months to do it. In that 5 months, she began on a health transformation. She lost 35 pounds, and she turned into a different person. And we began to understand that everybody has to do this. We all have to be pursuing that new story, and this has to be part 1 of our process, because this is what ties back to the picture of our business. The second thing we do is we get a customer. This is the foundation of our business. This is the biggest part of our faucet. We have to get customers. When we get customers, we have to take the time to know our customers. You know, it's sort of a simple business adage that the better you know people's expectations, the better you can focus on fulfilling them, and that's our job. You know, if you think about it, a sale, in essence, is really nothing more than a promise, because you've delivered nothing through a sale. What matters is that that sale turns into a reality, that expectation becomes a reality. This is how we earn business. This is how we build, you know, repeat business, how we build relationships. And interestingly enough, for the longest time, there was nothing really in place about knowing your customer. Now we have questionnaires that we use and all kinds of tools. And I'm not going to go through the tools behind this. I'm sure you guys have some of your own. But it's important to know our customers. This is foundational to us. And then we put in one simple change. And one simple change, just like living the mission, became a brand. And the brand, one simple change in essence, is about a simple goal. And we didn't put simple goal in, we put one simple change. So the development of this and what this means is really important to a lot of the lessons that we learned. So when we studied the UK phenomenon, one of the biggest lessons we took was that they were marketing the product differently than we were. You know, all over the world, we've been taught to market the product pretty heavy on science and education. We do these, you know, big lectures and doctors come in. And then we found out that, like, Katie was the original one we studied. She wasn't doing anything like that. What she was doing was she was marketing the product along with a set of rules. And the rules were called the skinny system, or the skinny rules. And it was really almost like a detox program. And what was different between her customer and our customer was her customer saw and felt results. So by adding these rules to it, the customer got a more meaningful experience, and everything's about the customer experience. So we started paying attention to that because we want to create a more meaningful experience. The biggest challenge we've had with Juice Plus is people don't feel prevention. A lot of them don't feel the product. So we taught this rule, and then all of a sudden people were coming in and building new rule systems. We got like complete transformation. We got the Transform 30 that Mitra did. And there's probably, you know, 15 or 20 other versions of programs like that that are out here. The D14, Big Detox program. And then one day when I was talking with Renee about building this, I said, you know, everybody's missing a really important component of how behavior works. If our goal is to inspire healthy living, if you think about that, the rules are important to that because it's not just product that does that. We have to build a culture that helps people make better choices. I was telling Renee, the one thing that's happening with all these systems is we're violating this human behavior principle that the more I ask of people, the less I get. So I understand that more rules makes things work better, but more rules don't matter at all if nobody's capable of doing them. And the example I shared with her was like this program P90X. This is a huge program that's over in the States. It's all on the TV, and it's a 90-day transformation. It's diet and exercise. You buy these tapes, and I mean, everybody knows about P90X. Well, I happened to see the guy speak that owns that company, and he asked a huge audience, how many of you bought my product? And, you know, almost half the hands went up, and he said, how many of you finished the 90-day program? And not one hand went up. And it was a reminder, this was the problem that we had. We had great programs that people could get results, but at the end of the day, we were asking too much of the average person. And remember, we market to the masses. If we have people that are the niche that can take on more discipline and take on more change, we have programs for them. So I was explaining this to Renee, and I said, look, somebody's going to figure out that the right answer is to let the customer pick one thing they're willing to do, tie it back to, in our mission of inspiring healthy living, we have to help you make better choices. We want to start with that process. And this was the birth of one simple change. She developed a checklist, gave her consumer the choice of, or a customer the choice of one thing they were willing to do. Interestingly enough, the one thing that they picked was to drink more water. And all of a sudden she calls me and she's like, I can't believe how many of my people are coming back to me that are just taking Juice Plus and now hydrating. They're saying, I've never felt so great. My skin looks good. I have energy. And this is the important takeaway. The customer cannot distinguish between the rules and the product. So when we add rules to the product, we get the benefit of what the rules provide. So one simple change became the easiest way to have a simple transformation goal for people. And then in addition to that, it expanded. It was a 30-day program that never continued. If you think about it, when do you ever reach a point of perfect health? So I can always have a new one simple change to pursue. I can always be pursuing a new story. And this is what we've seen. And the one simple change, we call it a movement now. This is literally all over the world. If you're watching Facebook and seeing what people are doing, you're starting to see this term be used everywhere. And even more exciting, we've seen it now expand beyond the transformation of the customer. We see people doing one simple change for their business, one simple change for personal development, one simple change to build stronger relationships. We can take this principle and instead of start promoting all these crazy goals, we can promote one simple goal at a time and begin to understand that the path of engagement is to keep people in the journey, and one simple change played a big part. Now, the next two things, engage your customer and five-star follow-up, became really, really important. This is where we learned the lesson about recruiting. For the longest time, we weren't really engaging our customer, and we saw a lot of this originally in the UK, and now we see a lot of it in the US. We see customers that are actually get on people's user groups, customers that are part of text groups or email groups or WhatsApp groups. But for the first time, we're seeing a lot of engagement, a lot of communication between the customer and the distributor. And of course, in the process of doing this, our follow-up has grown, and there's more attention being paid to the customer experience in the process of working toward building a raving fan customer. One of the reasons we put five-star follow-up in here instead of just follow-up is that this is a standard. You know, if you want to understand how to make your business great, understand that if you work engagement and follow-up better than everybody else, if this is what defines how people see you, you'll have people beating a path to your door. Your problem won't be losing customers. It'll be the exact opposite. But when we talked about engaging your customer and five-star follow-up, this was the big takeaway. This is where we started to see change. For the longest time, we forced recruiting. We forced it with incentives. We forced it with fast tracks. And the honest truth is it didn't work that well. All of a sudden, we began to see the recruiting numbers, whether it's new customers or new team, begin to blow up, begin to go through these crazy numbers we hadn't seen before. And what we realized, it was going on because people were recruiting at this stage of the process. What they found was that if they focused on really building the customer experience, really giving their all to that process, and the customer was engaging, that recruiting worked best when it was done more organically than forced. So what they're looking for is engagement and to open up a conversation. And this approach to building the opportunity side of our business has worked really, really well. And I don't know anybody that is doing well in our business that hasn't shifted their recruiting focus to this aspect of our process. And of course, what's the goal? A raving fan customer. And we know from the picture that I shared with you earlier that a raving fan customer, ultimately a lot of them turn into team. I will tell you that when this started getting billed, we had a higher percentage of customers turn into team, and we had them turn into team a lot quicker. So everything benefited from the process of focusing on building a raving fan customer. And then it became, so okay, so we now got a process, we understand what the business is, but what's the path to unlimited success? You know, how do we simplify that? Because there was so much complexity here. And what we realized, it's really just three simple things. If we follow this path, we can have unlimited success. So part one was, you got to keep a qualified business. And this is nothing new to the Australian leadership and to the Australian market. When Sean and I studied it before we came over there last year, the leadership over there, the SSCs and above, had more personal volume and more customer bases than any market that we have anywhere in the world. But believe it or not, all over the world, we are struggling, or we're not so much now, struggling with people understanding the first step in our business is always to qualify your business with a customer base. If you never get here, then what happens is you're never going to have a stable growing business because everything flows from this. And we began to realize that the people that weren't focused on qualifying were the people that were becoming inactive distributors. This is the thing that was driving the drain. So we now teach the qualification. We want everybody to get here. And I will tell you that if you took every distributor, forget about recruiting, forget about new people, if you just took every distributor you had and you did nothing but get them to qualify their business, what I can promise you is the biggest problem that the company would have is keeping up with the growth of our business. That's how much of a difference it makes. We have markets like, some of the European markets, for example, that if we did nothing but get all the distributors to qualify, the sales in those markets would go up over 400%. That's how much of a difference. This alone can turn us into a billion-dollar company. And then we begin to know part two is POB, to go after POB. This is what we call the stable component of the business. But what really happens in POB is this is when we invite team into the process, because POB starts to be about a small group of people doing the same thing that you did, building a qualified business. And then ultimately, the people that are chasing qualifiers, not chasing titles, not chasing incentives, the ones that are constantly looking at how do I get, if I'm at 6 qualifiers, how do I get to 8? If I'm at 8, how do I get to 12? If I'm at 12, how do I get to 24? The more you build qualifiers, the more you build strength. And the people that truly have abundance of financial and time freedom, if I showed you their 12-month reports, what you would see is massive amounts of qualifiers. And if you think about the process we just went through, when your goal is how many qualifiers can I build, and you're teaching every qualifier to build a customer base, what's the net result of this? Well, the net result of this is we go back to the first lesson that I taught you guys. A growing business is a growing customer base. So I know you guys have a lot of this thinking, and I don't know that you've seen this model. I wanted to share it with you. It's something that in one form or fashion is now being used all over the world, and it certainly allows me to share with you the lessons that we've learned and how we applied them to get simplicity. And I just want to kind of finish on this with regard to simplicity. This one change alone completely changed the results the company were getting. The global business was sort of flat, not moving really well, and now there is massive growth, growth that we didn't even realize was possible, way over the targets that we were looking for. So the second part of abundance. For years, we have taught the concept of recruiting. And the reality is that recruiting is scarcity. And it's scarcity versus abundance because recruiting is limited to who we know. And we began to teach things like, you know, the memory jogger and going after your warm market. And the honest truth is the world today doesn't work like that. You know, the world today, abundance comes with understanding that attraction is more important than recruiting. You know, that if we can figure out how to put what we have to offer to the world out to a bigger audience and do it in a way where people are coming to us instead of us going to them, there are truly no limits on what are possible in our business. And, you know, we began to put this into a model. And the model, I'm going to just touch on it briefly, and then I'm going to show you a picture of what this looks like, because I will tell you this. Everybody I know that has healthy speed, that are doing really the numbers that people can't understand how they're doing, it's not about social media and it's not about opportunity. It's about how they use those to attract people and to build audiences. And I'll show you this with an example in a minute. So where does it all start? With an image. You know, we have to recognize that whatever we do, whatever results we have, whoever we are as a person, whatever needs we can fulfill, however we can help society, we have to make this visible. And the more visible we make this, the more influence we build. So we have to pay attention to image. We have to pay attention to really critical aspects of how we communicate, what people see with that communication. You know, you can take something as easy as, to give you an example, curiosity. Curiosity is a big part of how people drive image to create influence. What we realize is that if we don't create curiosity, and a lot of times we give the answers to everything, you know, all of a sudden, you know, people go elsewhere and they find other answers. We teach image now in terms of communication, about what we call the communication lens. What are you doing so that people ultimately see your image and say, I want a relationship with that person and I see how they can make a difference in my life? And I will tell you, if you can get a lot of people to come to the conclusion that those two things work, you'll build a powerful image or a powerful brand in the marketplace. And then we go to influence. So what's so important to understand in the world we are living in today is that influence is the new currency of business. The more influence to have, the more influence we have, the more abundance we can have. And influence is really about two things. You know, the first is creating it. That's the prospecting component, the visibility to results. And this is what I see a lot of success at with people that understand attraction. They build, you know, just huge audiences. I got one girl that I'm coaching to give you an idea about strategies in these three areas, and she's pretty good at the whole social media thing and building attraction and building influence bases. And this is a girl that didn't have a warm market 2 years ago, and now she's in the business. She has over 50,000 people that look at her image on a regular basis. And because of this, you know, she's 20 legs wide. She's 9 in POB. She's doing over $500,000 in volume. She just promoted her 4th NMD. And this is because if you think about it, at the end of the day, who's going to do better? Somebody that has an influence of 100 people or somebody that has an influence of 50,000 people? So the people that I know that are the most successful in business understand the power of influence, and they understand they're always building visibility, and they're always looking to build influence. And then ultimately, we know the second part of influence is one thing to get somebody to look at your image. It's another for them to stay around, to build relationships, to build culture and community. And this becomes such an important part of how we keep influence. And then ultimately, what's the goal with that? Conversion. You know, we have to understand that in business, what we're looking to do with influence is to take it and make it a customer, make it a team member, to build something where there's a financial component to this, a business component to this. And here's what I can tell you. We're at the beginning of this journey. You know, for 40 years, this company has taught recruiting. Our industry teaches recruiting. The concept of teaching attraction is new. It's something that we're just figuring out. We're starting to see people that have it. I believe that when we teach this and we begin to build the right tools and the right systems around it, this is going to be the thing that explodes our business. This is going to be the thing that brings a level of success that we haven't seen before. You know, we could take something as easy as, I sent a video, I don't know if you guys happen to see it, but the office created it. You know, Jeff sort of approved it so that we could try to test something. And the test was, we need help. It was a 1-minute micro video with kids talking, we need help, and the idea was to build around the points of the challenge that they're dealing with in society and how, you know, there's answers out there. We kind of give a little bit about the answer, but we don't tell them the answers to Use Plus. We don't tell them the answers to Children's Health Study. So we gave that tool out to less than 10 people. And we did that right before I left for Frankfurt, which has probably been maybe 10 or 12 days ago. I don't know. I have to go back and look on my calendar. But let's just say 2 weeks. We now have over 10,000 people that have utilized that video. And what we're getting back is, I can't tell you how many customers we're getting, and we're recruiting team from this. And the reason is because that video does a great job of creating interest and creating curiosity. And because of that, people are now reaching out to them and saying, what is the answer? How do I find out? And we're not losing that to something else. So, you know, this is a kind of becoming attractions. This is something that starts with you understanding the importance of attraction and to start saying, well, what am I doing to show who I am and what I have to offer? Am I communicating in a way that people see this? And if you begin to pay attention to these three things, you'll start to see a different level of success in your business. So to give you an idea, because it's one thing to sell it on theory, but I want to just show you an example. So this is somebody that is in the business. As you can see, this is just a 12-month report. I just pulled it yesterday. And if you'll notice at the top, this is somebody that's been in the business a year. And I will also tell you that these figures are in pounds. This is one of the, this is a young girl. She's 20 years old, if you can imagine that. Never been in business before, not formally educated. So let's look what happened when she understood the concept of attraction over recruiting. This isn't a girl that has a large Rolodex, a large database. So what's changed in a year? Well, she started with the company. You can see her first month, she made 98 pounds. Now she's making almost 5,000 pounds a month. You can see she didn't even have any performance bonus, and performance bonus is the wealth created in our business. You know, this is where we make the largest percentage of our money. The more check you have this performance bonus, the more stability and freedom you have in your business. And if you look, in 1 year, she's already down, actually past her PV5. That's how quickly her business is duplicating because she teaches attraction. If you look at her pay line, it's went from 1,400 to 120,000. That's 180,000 US dollars in pay line volume in a year. She started building structure, and that structure has started duplicating to POB. But look at how many people she's been able to recruit and how many people she's been able to promote. You know, she's got 51 people that she brought in the first year, and she's got promotions all the way up the marketing plan, not just through BF, not through SC, and in the kind of journey of doing this, she's went from 0 to 36 Club, and now has business in 8 countries. And keep in mind, this is 1 year into the business. And if you look even deeper into this, you start to go back to the lesson. Growing customer base looks at a growing business. This is her customer base, excluding what they call single ships, because a single ship would be like ordering complete and it's a one-time. So our system treats that as a new order and a cancel. It sort of cancels itself out. But if you look at her business and just look at where she's went. Originally she started with 6 customers. The next month she's bringing in 70 customers and losing 2. And I will tell you, this is such an important thing to understand. The bigger the difference is between new AROs and cancellations, the more strength and speed you're going to have in your business. And because she knows attraction, she's bringing in huge amounts of customers. And this is what drove her process. And then if you look and say, well, what about the recruiting side? This is her and her other 2 leaders. And notice, this is a team that had nothing, and now the main leader has almost 200 people on her team in the first year in the business. So what's great about this story isn't that it's just one story. The biggest struggle I had in building this was which story I was going to use. We have so many people that look like this, and they are not just kids. These are not just people that are new in the business. We have people that have been stuck in the business. You know, people that like might have had 100,000 in payline volume, big NMDs, that in the last year to 2 years are now at $1 million in payline volume. And these are people that are older. These were people that didn't understand about attraction and the power of how social media can drive this. And they began to learn and shift. And we had abundance everywhere. And everybody that gets this principle and begins to learn it and practices, these are the ones that have abundance. So, step number 3. The key to abundance is service aptitude. And what service aptitude means to me is it's really about your ability to exceed the needs of a customer and the expectations of a customer. It's knowing that customer, but really defining yourself by doing a better job at the customer experience than anybody else. And I keep saying customer experience, and the reason I say this is because I will tell you in my heart, I believe that the better you are at customer experience, the more successful you will have in this business. So, you know, the first kind of question you might ask is, does it matter? You know, at the end of the day, you know, it's a principle, but does it matter? So I wanted to give you an example of how it matters, just to give you a perspective of how different this is. There was a study done, University of Michigan, 10 years, looked at the stock value of companies that had the highest customer satisfaction rates compared to the average company that was in the same space. Look at the difference. The companies that understood the power of the customer experience, that built that in everything they did, it became an identity, what we call a cultural tenet. These are businesses that went up 390% in stock growth when the market was down 7%. So what we know is this is a complete difference maker. It absolutely matters. It's literally foundational to success. Do most organizations do it well? So I'm sure there's a lot of people, you know, I look at myself and I think, well, I'm pretty good at building relationships and understanding expectations. And then I found another study, and this was an interesting study. It was called the Bain study. And it looked at 3 massive organizations and asked them the question, how well do you guys do it? You know, high quality customer service, outstanding customer service. And 80% of them said we did fantastic. What they didn't know was the Bain study was going to go out to the customer base and ask them the same thing. And the customer base didn't have 80%, they had 8. So it's really important to understand that we need to see the world through the customer's eyes, not just ours. We have to understand that a lot of times we think we're doing well and because our intentions are good, but what we have to pay attention is to make sure that the expectations equal reality. And this is a perfect example of that they don't. For most people, we think we're good at customer, we think we're good at building good relationships, but the only real true test of that is, what are your customers doing? How happy are they? How much of a difference are you making in their day? You know, how long are they staying around? Are you creating an emotional and a power relationship with them? You know, these become the questions that matter. if we look at what's our challenge as a culture, it's really simple. If we look over time, we lose too many customers and we lose them too soon. And then the focus now, and there's lots of conversation going on about this, lots of systemizing, lots of teaching, how do we fix this? And, you always got to go back to the momentum formula where you always fix everything the same way. You start with thinking. So where's the thinking wrong? And then you go into implementation and activity and actions. This is where you build strategies and systems and tools. And then ultimately, to do anything better, you have to be committed to working a process, to understanding that results don't get produced overnight. This is an evolution, maybe even a revolution people are going through with regard to building more service aptitude. But I do want to share with you a few points on this. The first point is that the strongest force in you is your identity. So if you want to build the right mindset to have what we're talking about with service aptitude, you have to build it into your identity. It can't be a strategy. It can't be just something you do. It can't just be a system. People have to look at you, and when they define you, they have to define you as the ultimate experience provider. Understand that everything about service is about the customer experience. And the more we understand the power of that, the more we begin to understand that's the job, the more we're going to do better at this. So how do we do that? When we talk about experiences, for the longest time, for 3 years now, I've been talking about the engagement formula, the triumph of hope over experience, and the simple reality that in behavior, if we're having great experiences, we continue to want to do what we're doing that creates those. And if we're not, we have to rely on hope, and that's just how behavior in the mind works. And for the longest time, we kind of paid more attention to marketing hope in the form of incentives and visions and whys, and not enough time to confirming it with the experiences that drive it. Now we shift it. Now what's important in our business is the experience. This is what people are focused on, the experience and the journey. This is why business is booming. So I want to share with you what I believe, and this is part of the engagement principle I teach, what I believe are the 5 components of a great experience. Not just the customer experience, but a great experience. First of all, it has to be positive. I don't need to tell you what that means. You know what the positive emotions are. Maybe it's fun, maybe it's appreciation, could be love, could be knowledge, could be fun. There's just so many spectrums of what positive looks like. It has to be meaningful. And the more meaningful it is, the more powerful it is to that person. This is why we always teach that if you can get people to feel an experience instead of just have one, you're invoking an emotional component to the experience. And our brain pays more attention to emotions, pays more attention to habits. So the more meaningful that we can create things, and meaning matters. Meaning is about the definition we give to things, the conclusion. This is the foundation of how we build beliefs, how perceptions are controlled. This is sort of an area that I've studied for 25 years because I understand every decision we make, every action we have, every thought we have is a function of the meaning, the program that we put in our brain. So if we're good at getting the right programs, kind of go back to what I taught you about image. Can you imagine that if every experience you had, the customer came back and said, oh my gosh, I got to have a relationship with this person, with you, and I can see how you can make a difference in my life, and I can feel this, and I'm so committed to this. If that's what you could create, your problem you would have in business is keeping up with your business. Of course, we know that a great experience, because people want more, creates hope. And this is where hope comes from. See, none of us were born hoping that we were going to get Juice Plus into our body, hoping that we'd find an opportunity around a great culture. This all came from life. It comes from living experiences and giving meaning to experiences. Hope is like a future belief system. It's about what we expect, and we know positive and meaningful is something that people want more of. But here's the important one. A great experience confirms hope. This is where people get tripped up. This is where network marketing and the opportunity people miss the boat. They're very good at creating hope. They can build visions and whys and goals and all these things. They're just not committed to the process of turning hope into reality. Remember, hope is a beggar. So just like a street person might look for food, hope looks for experiences. Without experiences, hope won't exist. It'll drift to something else. Hope is sort of the foundation of discipline. It's where our interest and our energy and our focus and our resources go. So the stronger is hope is around your business and around your product, the more you're going to have engagement. So not only do we have to create it, but more important, we have to confirm it. And we know that that's all about experiences. And then the last thing is that we want to make sure that we magnify it. And so I'm going to kind of run through some of the other things quickly because I'm getting close on time. Understand point number 3, we're in the perception business. So the customer perception is our reality. And one of the things that we're learning is how this is controlled. Because if we want to have success with controlling perceptions, we need to control that. We need people coming to us. We don't need to be going to everywhere else for them to find answers. This is why we're kind of moving in the direction of using curiosity for tools. And one of the studies that we found was that 89% of consumers will turn to Google, Bing, or another search engine to find information about products, services, or business prior to making a purchase. So I don't like to leave a decision up to the search engines of the world. No matter what product you look up, you'll find something negative, and it's interesting that people will seek that out. They'll seek the negative, but if I can control curiosity, I can attract them to reaching out to me. I can begin to control customer perception, and perception is the foundation of all business. It's the foundation of all communication. You know, why do we communicate? Because we want people to take away the thinking that we want them to think. And this is the perception game. So customer perceptions matter, and you need to take control of that process. This is an important one for me. If you look at what we do, understand our customers only fit into one of 2 categories. Either our customers are brand evangelists, and what do these people look like? These are the raving fan customers. These are the customers telling other people about what we've done for them, what our product has done for them, what our culture has done for them. This is the target. But we also know that if the customer has a bad experience, and especially if it's attached to a negative emotion, these people become the brand terrorists. And we know from all the research that we do about this that the brand terrorists just have a goal of going out and telling more people about how bad you were and how bad your product is and how bad your opportunity is. A good example of this is the UK. We were surprised. First time in all the years we had been in the Juice Plus business where we were seeing brand terrorists on our product. Like nobody ever said anything bad about Juice Plus. And all of a sudden we were hearing this all over the place on the social media network. And the reason was because they attached so much of the opportunity to the product that when the opportunity didn't work, then all of a sudden the product didn't work. And they couldn't separate those things. So what we have to understand if we want abundance and we want to create this through service is our goal is creating brand evangelists, and this is where we're going to recruit the most people. This is where we're going to build the most solid customer bases. Ultimately, here's 4 great questions you can put in that'll help you get better at this. You know, how would your team and your customers rate your service aptitude? No place better to look to determine how well you're doing than to ask the customer. Do your perceptions and intentions match the customer expectations? If I took away the products, culture, and relationships with the customer, would it even matter to them? You know, if you think about that question, if it doesn't matter to them, how really well are you doing at building a customer relationship? If you took it away and they were like going crazy and they were looking to find somebody else, then you're doing a great job with the service aptitude. And then ultimately, are we serving our relationships by enhancing the value of their day? You know, this kind of goes back to the Starbucks principle of the more we enhance the value of somebody's day, the more the product and their interaction with us becomes a habit. And then the final thing goes back to where I ended on, and that is that our business of a growing customer base is easy to look at. This is the analytic that matters the most. If you have more new business than you're losing and you're working the tub, this is going to be good for business. But when you have more cancellations in new business, this becomes when business gets bad. And this is the simple formula that we look at all the time. We measure this in every company. We measure this with all leadership. And the stronger you do the good, the better your business is going to be. So kind of just to summarize this part, it's really simple. He who serves the best profits the most. And if this is the mentality you take on with all your customer service and with your customer experience, if you define yourself by this, this won't be a problem that you'll have. This will be a place for you to have abundance. So my last point is that abundance to me is a mindset. It's a standard of thinking. To me, it reminds me a lot of excellence. You know, we know from the studies on habits that the best habit you can put in your brain is the pursuit of excellence. I feel the same way about abundance. You know, right now, all we're teaching is to raise your standards, raise the ways that you think, look at things in a different way. If you don't demand abundance, you won't have abundance. And if you want to have abundance, you have to realize that abundance of results comes with an abundance of activity. And this is what we have to embrace. You know, the people that do really well really work hard, and they do a magnificent job of what Lauren calls Goya, you know, getting off your ass, the law of Goya. And they understand that activities are what create results. So I encourage you to embrace a better mindset, to chase a bigger standard in life, and this will make a difference. So on that note, I want to take a minute to introduce somebody that was kind enough to get on the call and share a little bit of his insight. Of course, this is somebody I've known for many, many years, almost 25 years, probably longer than some of you have been alive on this call. You know, he's a legend in the industry. He's certainly a legend in our company, and that is Jeff Roberti. So, Jeff, are you there?
Okay, let's see. Okay,
Jeff, you there?
Hear us? Let's just try. Okay. Okay, Jeff, can you hear us? All right, I'm going to just very quickly call him on this line and just see. Okay.
You hear me?
I can hear you now. Okay, let's see. Oh.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can. Can everybody else hear Jeff?
Okay. Well, anyway, first of all, I just want to acknowledge Gordon and the job he just did, what he just shared. Gordon, it's spot on what your message is sharing. I love the simplicity. I love the duplication part of this. Back to the basics, back to the fundamentals. And, you know, when you have something that is fun, simple, easy, magical, and duplicatable, like what Gordon just shared, I mean, Gordon, it's really just a brilliant message, and it really gives everybody a vision here of how to keep this thing, you know, really get it back down to the basics and the fundamentals with living the mission and understanding that we're mission-driven and relationship-driven and becoming an attractive person, you know, and inspiring you know, to inspire other people. And, you know, I really love, Gordon, what you're talking about because it really boils down to this. You know, when you're out there building your business and building a growing customer base, I always ask people, can you do to others what I just did to you? Is it that simple and that duplicatable? And I've always had an attitude of fall in love with your customers, not your business. You know, it's always, you know, the three simple things that I've focused on, Gordon, over the years is, you know, it's always about their needs, putting other people's needs ahead of your needs, you know, meeting their needs. You know, you go into a relationship to give, not to get. You're not measuring what you get in return. And then number two, you're adding value to their lives. You know, adding that value in all areas of their lives. I love what you talked about with the abundance and living the mission. And the third thing is you create those raving fan relationships. Long-term relationships equal long-term success. So, you know, at the end of the day, Gordon, you know, it's not like you've got to do 1,000 things. Well, you've got to do a handful of things 1,000 times. It really just boils down to a few simple disciplines. A few simple disciplines done consistently over and over again equal multiple rewards. So, you know, it's not like you got to do 1,000 things. You do a handful of things 1,000 times. So, you know, really, you know, Gordon just kind of wrap this up, and I love what, you know, it's a great notes. I'm sure all of you on the other end over there took really good notes tonight. You know, it's one thing to get the notes. It's another thing to apply it, to integrate it, you know, to really metabolize it and get the growth and the energy from it, and also to not only apply it in your own life, what you just heard here tonight, but now to go out and teach it. You know, the fastest path to mastery is to teach it and to share it. You always want to take notes, as not as if you're only taking notes for yourself, but you're taking notes that you're going to go out there and help somebody else and serve them. So really the call to action tonight, guys, is in the marching orders is seize the moment. You know, seize the moment. Strike while the iron's hot. The timing of what's going on right now with our company and this mission and what we're all about, you know, the message and the thing I'd like to share, it's your turn now. It's your turn. It's your chance. You know, the best is yet to come. You know, you've got this stable company, but with a very bright future. So the timing and the best of years are ahead of us for those of you that are on the call tonight. But it boils down to the you part. You know, you've got to decide what you want. You know, you got to look in the mirror and say, okay, if it's to be, it's up to me. Raising your standards, holding yourself accountable, leading by example, being the best distributor in your organization. It's easier to lead than it is to push. Be that example. Become that attractive person. Success breeds success. And, you know, now you get the chance tonight to get off this call. Tear up that list of excuses. You know, look in the mirror. Say, you know, ask yourself, what do I have to do to make this a bigger priority in my life? You know, and then say, okay, now I've got a chance after what I just heard with Gordon shared here tonight, what I'm part of in this mission-driven company, to do something in life that matters, something that counts, something where you're making a difference, where you're touching and changing people's lives, not only with their health, but with their prosperity or all these areas of abundance Gordon was talking about. You're part of a movement. You're part of a mission. You're part of something bigger than yourself that's rich in relationships and love and connection and growth and contribution and really doing something that's full of meaning and purpose and fulfillment. So I just want to once again, Gordon, acknowledge you for the job you did here tonight, the message that you shared. Like I said, I love the simplicity, the duplication of what we have here today and going back to the basics, back to the fundamentals, and just really focusing on those. So I'll turn it back over to you, Gordon and Celine. I look forward to seeing everyone. Those of you who are coming to Sacramento will be there. It'll be an exciting conference, and in 6 weeks we'll be with you guys in Australia. So I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Woo-hoo. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeff, for popping online as well and sharing. I agree with you totally. What Gordon shared with us tonight was just pure simplicity, but yet so important. And Gordon, I really appreciate both of you gentlemen, but Gordon, you know, especially you guys for the work that you put in to being here tonight at so early in the morning over there. It was absolute gold. I wrote pages of notes, as I'm sure others were. I was getting messages right through going, this is gold, this is magic. So I'm sure plenty, this will be played over time and time again. So really appreciate your time, Gordon.
Thank you, Celine, and thanks everybody for tuning in. I'm sorry I'm not going to be at your conference, but I'm hearing great things. I think it's going to be a magical event. Things are certainly exciting right now.
Absolutely. No, it's going to be great. We're really looking forward to it. We're looking forward to having you, Jeff, around the pool with us all and sharing lots of wisdom, and, of course, hearing you speak from the stage as well. So, again, really, really appreciate both of you.